I was on a job where I had to drive site to site and do a small upgrade to the shelving at every CVS pharmacy in California. I'm about a month into the contract, and I've got over 100-mile drive through the redwoods to my next location. As I'm driving, I notice that I smell a slight funk on myself. If I can smell it, it will be 100 times worse to the client. I'll need to figure out how to get a shower and change clothes before arriving at the next location. I'm about 40 miles deep on this isolated stretch of highway through the redwoods when I see a sign for a camp at the next exit. I take the turn off, see if they have a shower. I pull into this really small camp that has about 15 spots, all tight together in a circle. It's an awful camp, but it is deserted, and they have a shower. Perfect. I grab a towel and change of clothes and head to the bath building. As I approach, I can hear water running. I get to the building, and there's someone in one of the stalls taking a shower. This is really weird. Camp is deserted. No cars, no tents. It's the middle of winter, and we're miles and miles from civilization. Who in the world could be in there? It's got to be a pot farmer, right? Maybe a homeless dude? Are there meth labs in the redwoods? I'm not quite spooked by it, but my instincts are telling me that this is very weird. I decided to go ahead and use one of the showers a few stalls down from him. I'm comforted that the doors are thick metal with a big strong bolt lock. The shower runs on quarters. Nice, California. I take off my clothes and slide some quarters in the slot, and the water immediately turns on. A second later I hear, "Fuck!" Oh no, I must have stolen his hot water. I feel awful, but I can't shut it off. The water instantly runs when the quarters go in. Nothing I can do. So unlasily, I step under the water wondering what's going through the other guy's head. I don't have to wait long to find out. I'm about a minute into my shower when bam! There's a huge smash against my metal door, following by him screaming, "Bam, bam, bam." This dude is trying to kick down my door. I'm petrified. I get out of the shower, and I stand by the door, dripping wet and naked with my fist up in case he gets in. I can't put into words how uncomfortable I felt about the concept of fighting naked. I kept thinking I should try to put my pants on real quick, but couldn't bring myself to do it, because if the door gave while my pants were around my ankles, I would get absolutely destroyed. I also thought about the implications of fighting someone miles and miles from the next human being. What are the stakes? I've been in more than a handful of bar fights, and even enjoyed boxing with my friends, but there was never any real danger. If someone was getting hurt, everyone breaks it up. Is this guy going to stop fighting if he wins? Is this to the death in his mind? I'm so scared that I'm near panicking, but I try to control my voice and give myself the best possible chance at coming out of this. After what felt like an eternity of him trying to get in, even though it was probably 1 minute or two, he stopped screaming and banging. I call out to him, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'll give you more quarters." There's no answer. I wait a few more minutes and finally relax a little. He's got his wits about him. I resume my shower, thinking about how weird this is and wondering if he'll be waiting for me. Then I think about my truck. I've got a few grand worth of tools in there. I literally can't afford to lose them. I'm sure he's in it. Soaking wet, I jump out of the shower, throw on my pants, and slam open the stall door and go running out towards my vehicle. As I turn the corner of the building towards the parking area at full sprint, I am so relieved to see that he's nowhere around. He must have slinked back to wherever he hides in the wilderness. Thank God. Dear homeless, hippie, meth lab crazy person, please chill. In a previous post here, I mentioned some scary woods that Randonautica recommended to me to go to. I obviously had a lot of interesting findings over the last few days, but today was definitely a significant find. Along the previous mentioned scary woods path, while me and some of my friends were showing it off to another friend, we happened to find a random clearing in the forest with some path just along the road. I was driving, so I stayed lookout at the car while two of my friends went in with flashlights. This was around 9 p.m. And when they went in, everything seemed normal until they looked up and saw tons of different dolls hanging above the trees. I heard my first friend scream and run the fuck out of there, and my second friend started recording and got it on camera before he also ran out. They told me that there were even more dolls that they didn't notice going in, and the ones near the exit of the clearing were more creepy, having large eyes, and some had disconnected eyes. Anyone have any ideas what this could be? Some kind of ritual to something? A cursed land? Let me know what you think. Hey guys, I've been lurking here for a while. I, male in my 20s, decided I'd share my story. I work at a national park at night in New England. I'm a zoologist. Well, it was a few months ago, December. There was a bit of snow falling, and the temperature was near 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Anyways, I was driving through the forest in my truck when I saw a van with its lights off in the woods. I stopped, and I'm sure I heard the van with its engine on. It was a different sound than my truck's. It was odd, but I thought it was some teens or someone camping. About 10 miles deeper in the woods in a valley, I stopped because I saw a herd of animals I'm supposed to monitor. I was looking for calves when I heard squealing brakes. I quickly got back into my truck and got my rifle ready. I began driving around the valley and then saw a silhouette descending from the hills. I was so sure this had to do with the van. The dude started walking towards me. I noticed he was holding something long, so I aimed the truck towards him and revved the engine. Then I began driving towards them, but they kept coming towards the truck. I was raised in a small town in the Southwest, so I'm used to weirdos. I go down with my rifle, and he started running up the hill. A few moments later, I heard him drive off. This is my account of a few creepy things that happened to me on a farm I used to live on. My stepmom had always loved the idea of living off the land and raising our own animals. So after many attempts at just that, we rented a house on a piece of land with an already established asparagus farm. Soon after we came all the animals to the property. We had a good group of chickens and ducks and a few rabbits. We let the birds free range and never really had any issue with it. However, soon after raising our last batch of ducklings, 2 of our 4 adult ducks disappeared. They left no trace, not a single feather. Though we did live in the country, we would see our neighbors, and at the very neck of our property, there was a creek that connected to our state river. So for a while, we'd assumed the ducks had just wandered off. However, one evening, it was starting to rain, so we ran outside to make sure all the animals would get into their respective homes. And as we were checking everything, my stepmom and I heard a duck in the woods, so we run across the property, about an acre or so, down to the woods to see if it was our missing ducks. My dad and brother came down after with the guns to check the woods as we looked through the tree line. They headed off towards the creek and told me to whistle if I saw anything, and I headed up the side of the property checking behind our barn. My stepmom came back out of the woods as I made my way back to where we had split up. Side note, the creek at the back of the property split off and ran a stream up the side of our property. As we were facing the stream, we hear multiple whistles come from the woods in front of us. Thinking it was my brother, we started looking around for him, being careful not to spook any possible ducks. After about 30 seconds, my dad and brother come running out of the woods from the opposite direction, asking why were we whistling. My stepmom and I, both confused, said it wasn't us, and told them that we assumed it would be my brother. We all said none of us had done it, and we were all with other people who could account for our actions. Edit. The whistling came from directly in front of us with no sign of anyone being there. There was no movement or sound other than the whistling, which happened multiple times. I possibly relayed a story happened a week or so after the whistling incident. However, I was not present for this. Both my brother and my sister were. It was around 8 at night, but it was the summer, so it was still light outside. A bad storm was just on the horizon, and my brother and my sister were watching the sky darken and turn gray. They looked into the back of our yard, about an acre away, to see a man crouched down dressed in all white. My brother, being who he is, shot towards the figure after telling him to leave many times, and watched him run off. My sister says she saw him before my brother, just standing behind our fence post staring at them. She only told my brother when he had moved and she could clearly see the shape of a man. Edit. After talking to my sister more about the encounter, she says the man had an odd glow around him, and that made them notice him in the dark woods. I'm not sure if these stories are connected, but needless to say, my parents didn't like us going in the woods anymore. So let me know what you guys think. Edit. Also not sure if this has anything to do with the stories, but when we moved out of that house, we found where a bullet had been shot through our house and got caught in my dad's riding vest. It came through my sister's window and into my parents' closet. We did hear the shot and saw a man running through the yard, but didn't find the bullet or broken window until months later, because it didn't shatter the glass. It came through the wood. I live in Finland, so excuse for my grammatical errors I might have made. This is also my first one, so excuse if this sounds a bit weird. It was an icy evening and around early 2017, shortly after my 15th birthday. I was hanging out with one of my friends after school, and we decided to just take a walk around the general area, then go over to their house to play some video games. It took longer than we thought to just part ways, so by the time that this happened, it was about 6 in the evening. We usually left school at around 2:45 p.m. The sun had just set particularly early on that day, and the surrounding air had turned very bitter. Cold, and otherwise very dark skies, illuminated with scattered stars and an intense shining moon, and the leftover snow from that day created a bright, beautiful glow. This was some time after I learned to actually walk to school on my own, and I was used to going home fairly late. I was never really scared of going that distance. My school was about half an hour away from my home, by myself in the evening. So I hopped onto a bus, and it was around 6:15 to 6:30 when I finally got off the bus at my stop. In only a few minutes' time, I ended up on the intersection between the road I was on and the quiet road my house was on. But as soon as I walked across the end of the road and made the first turn, I stopped right in my tracks as I saw a woman standing in my path, staring at me straight into my eyes. She was very thin, about my height, around 5'8", maybe even a little bit taller, had long, thick jet black hair, and was ghostly pale in both skin and clothes. She wore a simple dress. Her eyes were empty and gray. She did not say a word. I just shifted around for a second, looking back, debating whether or not I should just pass, or if it would be rude if I turned around to see if someone else was close by and could pass by her safely. But nobody else seemed to be around. She also stood next to the house with an open and dilapidated gate entrance. So I also perhaps wondered for a moment if she had resided there, and if it would be rude to almost intrude on her space. All became quiet around us, and I was wondering in that moment what to do. I sort of lifted my hand a little bit, not really intending anything by that. And to my surprise, she responded by lifting her long but thin hands and smiling a little bit. She started walking towards me, and I turned around, briskly walking back to the intersection. For a second, I thought I just imagined the whole thing. But then I saw the woman again, still just staring, but this time having turned towards the opposite sidewalk away from me, just staring into the sky. I decided at this point that it was safe to walk past, but I noticed that she sort of craned her head to the side ever slightly as I walked past. I started to quicken my pace a little bit as I approached the next turn and looked back to see her staring once again.